Hello, I'm Brenda and my channel is Handwork Maniac. Thank you to everyone who watches. I hope you all feel welcome. And I love reading all your comments. They always make me happy. Which we'll just go straight to questions and comments. Lilia, in case I didn't get a chance to answer your email yet, and she wanted to know which video it was that I showed a hank of silk and talked about how I was going to cut up the hank of silk and what I was going to do with it. And I finally figured it out. Lily and I have been trying to figure out what video that was for weeks. It's number 23, Lilia. So we finally figured it out. Hopefully that is helpful for you. I'm going to leave that one for a minute because it's about pandemic, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Mary Jo, my friend Mary Jo, said she needs a cross-stitch maid. She would love a cross-stitch maid who would find the perfect fabric, cut it to the perfect size, gather all the floss that it needs, the perfect floss for it, organize it all into the different little baggies, and then put it all in a gorgeous bag ready for her to start. She would love that. I was laughing thinking, wouldn't that be fabulous? Could you possibly make that into a real job maybe? I don't know if you could, maybe if you knew a lot of local stitchers who wanted to do that for them, maybe you could make that into a job, a cross-stitch maid. Oh, and then when you're finished with a project, the cross-stitch maid would put all the flosses back, file them where you need to go, where they're supposed to be, put the pattern back where it's supposed to go, cut the fabric, get it all ready, and finish it for you, right? That's what I need my cross-stitch maid to do. Kathy, oh, that's another pandemic question. Hang on. So is that? Oh, Cheeky Mare. I talked about I had 4 projects in Craft Prison and I couldn't remember what the 4th one was. And she reminded me, thank you. It was my EGA sewing kit box thing. And it was all finished except for I decided I wasn't going to do all the little other smalls that were part of the project in EGA because they were all their different kinds of needlework that I don't enjoy. So it just needed a little pin cushion. If you go back to somewhere in January video, you'll see I made a little, it's a salt box from Plum Street Sampler, one of her little salt box houses. And I made it into a pin cushion and finished up that project. And that one got out of Craft Prison in January. Thank you for reminding me what that was. That was bugging me. And then I had a viewer, and I've tried to find the comment. It either wasn't in my last video or it was maybe on Instagram. I'm so sorry I can't find it. But she said, would I please, please, please show my fabric stash? She's just dying to see my fabric stash. And it's not very... It's just, this is a basket that I bought at Hobby Lobby, and the fabric is just all stacked up in there. No rhyme or reason, not by count, not by size, not by anything. It's just, I set it on its side like this, and I just stacked it all in there until I got up to the top. And then I do have a whole bunch of Ada in this can. That's still in its package, just in there. I would like to separate it, organize it a little better and separate it out by fabric count at least. Maybe have 3 different bins or 4 with different fabric counts in it. All of my fabric is usually either 40 count or 32 count. I do have some Ada and I do have a little bit of 28 count, not very much. And just a little, I don't have any 36 count except for the piece I'm using for pandemic and a piece that's in another project. So I wouldn't need very many bins, and then I could at least have it out by count. So if I knew what count I was looking for. Although sometimes when you find the perfect color, if you're looking through your stash and you have the perfect color, you will make whatever count it's on work. So sometimes I am looking for a particular color. But so far I don't have so much that I can't just look through it all in this mess, in this bin. They are kind of folded in there nicely. I don't know if you can see that, or at least they were. Until I've rummaged through it several times. All right. All the rest of the questions have to do with pandemic, so let's pull that up. Pandemic is a long dog sampler pattern. That she released, I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago? I can't remember. Looks like this. It is very large. It is 365 by 429. And I told you last time that I had gotten the pattern but wasn't planning on starting it anytime soon, and then decided, well, it's named Pandemic, and she released it during the pandemic to give us all something to do. So I feel like I want to look back and remember that I started it during the pandemic and that I at least worked on it a little bit during the pandemic. So that was why I started yet another large project, which I did not need, but I'm so enjoying. This is mine so far. It is on 36 count white linen, and I am using Sulky thread. The main color is a blendable color called Cactus. It's one of the Sulky 12 weight. Sulky makes lots of thread, most of it to use on a sewing machine. And if you had a special sewing machine, it would probably use this as well. It's probably why they make it, but it's a thicker thread. It wouldn't work on my sewing machine. So it's 12 weight. So it's, of all of their lines of thread, this is their 12 weight kind. So make sure if you want to purchase this product to stitch with like this, you get the 12 weight kind of thread. It usually comes on, most people buy it on these petite spools. These are called their petite spools. But they also make their colors on these bigger spools. And I can't remember the name of this, what they call this. My last video, I told you what this was called. And they also make it on a great big king, no, jumbo. I believe this is a king spool, and then the big one is a jumbo spool. This has 300 meters on it. This has, or 330 yards. This is 50 yards on these little petite spools. Okay, so I'm using the color Cactus, which is 4086. The first part of the number is 713, but I believe that means all the blendables start with a 713. And then the second part of the number is 4086, and on their website they call it Cactus. It's lots of different greens with just a little bit of a yellowish brown for that darkest color. And then I am using a solid color, and all of their solid colors start with a 712. And this is color, it's called Turquoise on their website, but it is color 1095. And that's what I'm using to do all the animals on mine in. And then for the backstitching, I thought that this 12 weight was just a little bit too thick to do the backstitching on 36 count. It probably looked fabulous on 32 count, I don't know, but on 36 count it was just a little bit too thick. I was losing all the detail of the backstitching. So I decided to do my backstitching in one strand of DMC, and I am using, for the animals, I just chose a DMC color. I just was looking for a color that was exactly the same color as this. And I know there is a DMC color that's exactly the same as this, but I was too impatient to look through all my DMC and figure out what it was. And this Gentle Arts Really Teally was sitting right on top of my bin of overdyed floss, and it looked like the exact right color. At least my dye lot that I have was the right color, so I just grabbed it. But really I was looking for I'm sure there's a DMC that's almost the exact same color as this, and I just saw this and it was easier to grab. And then for for the animals, I'll use that color for the back stitching. For everything that I'm stitching in this color, I chose this darker green, DMC 520. And that's what I'll use for all the back stitching that's in this color. I mean, for all of backstitching that goes around the sections that are in this color. I'm just trying to confuse you, really. That's what I do. And I meant to tell you all of this in my last video, what colors I was using and everything. I completely forgot because, as I've said, you get in front of the camera and all rational thought goes out of your head. I am so sorry. As I told you in my last video, if you look at her page in Pandemic that tells you how much floss you need, mine's on 36 count, and she says if you're using 36 or 40 count, you're probably using 1 strand, and this is how many yards you're going to need. But she's basing that on 6 ply floss, where you separate the plies out and you're only using 1. So take her amount that she recommends and times it by 6, because you don't separate this. This just comes straight off the spool like it is. It's a little heavier. It's about the same weight as 2 strands of DMC. So when I did the math, I figured out that I'd need about 1,000, little over 1,000 yards of floss. And these are 330 yards. So that's not quite 1,000, but with this is 50 yards on this spool. Since I'm using that for all the animals, I'm pretty sure 3 spools of this will be plenty. 99% positive this will finish Pandemic, but I got on their website and ordered 1 more just in case, because, you know, it just makes me feel better. I don't know. My daughter Marie's also stitching this, and she is using the color Blue Heaven in the blendables. I don't have the number of that right here with me, but if you look on their website, it's called Blue Heaven, and it's all teals. They kind of had 2 colors on their website that were teals, lots of different shades of teals. One had purple in it, and I believe that was something peacock, had peacock in the name. Or you could choose teals that had a little bit of brown in it, or green, sorry, a little bit of green. Teals with a little bit of green in it, and that was Blue Heaven. And that's the one my daughter Marie is using. All right, let me get to these comments about Kate Brown was fabulous and told me, because I told you last time that I believed Sulky was based in the United States, because the web, or at least the website I was ordering from seemed to be based in the United States. And she said that Sulky is actually a German, made by a German company called, a thread from a German company called Gunold, or Gunold, G-U-N-O-L-D. I'm sorry, I'm probably saying that. I should have asked my son how to say that. He could have told me. And the 12 weight is actually made in Italy, but Sulky in America is the distributor for them. So good news for those of you who live in Europe, you might be able to access this thread a lot more readily from Germany or Italy maybe, I don't know, wherever, probably from Germany, wherever Sulky or Gunold is based, from there. And then if you live in the United States, that's great news, because when I ordered it, I'm pretty sure it was shipped from a, you know, they ship it in and they have a large supply of it, inventory of it here in the United States. It was shipping from a warehouse in the United States. It was not coming from overseas. So it came to me very quickly, a week and a half by the time it got to me when I ordered from sulky.com. So good news for both continents, right? You can get it from both places, I would assume. Kathy Carter asked if I would share the DMC numbers of what I was using for the backstitching, and I did that. But Jennifer Kelly commented and said that another idea is to use the lighter weight Sulky, same colors, just get some of the lighter weight, not 12 weight, but one of their, I think it's 40 weight, or the regular thread that you would use on a sewing machine, in that same color, and use that for the backstitching. And I thought that was a fabulous idea. And then Julie commented and said that there is a store in Sandy, Utah called the Handmaiden that's part of Quilts Etc. It's kind of inside the Quilts Etc. store, I believe, or else right next to it, not sure. And they carry the Sulky 12 weight thread if you want to go look at it in person. My daughter went there. Marie, bossy daughter, went there last week because she was wanting to start Pandemic and wanted to look at it. And they did not have the color that I'm using or the color that she ended up using because when I ordered 2 colors because I couldn't decide which one until I saw them in person. So I chose Cactus, but I had also ordered Blue Heaven. So I gave my Blue Heaven to Marie and she ended up using that color. But she said the Handmaiden didn't have either one of those colors and there was no space for it on the shelf. So I don't know if the Handmaiden carries every color that Sulky makes or that they offer on their website, but they do have Sulky 12 weight there if you want to go and look at it. I'm sure there's lots of other places that have it too. I just don't know who they are. If you know, you viewers, please comment and I'll let everybody know other places in Utah or maybe where you live where you can go buy it in person. All right. I think that's all the comments about pandemic. I am thoroughly enjoying working on this. It's addicting. Once I get started on it, I can't stop. I'm working up here right now on this vase of flowers. So fun. I was stitching with some friends yesterday, and they said that this bird here has a personality and that I should name him. I'll have to think about that, but he definitely has that hat and that feather. Give him definitely some personality. But I'm very much enjoying this piece. I am using this on Pattern Keeper. Long Dog files work in Pattern Keeper, so I'm using it on Pattern Keeper. The one thing I noticed on Pattern Keeper, normally on Heaven and Earth Design, I use the search function and I highlight a particular symbol. And then that highlights all of the symbols of that color for you, so you can easily see where you need to stitch. And then when I'm done stitching those, while they're highlighted, I will mark the ones that I've stitched and mark them as done. And that's really nice because as you're marking the ones you've stitched, it won't mark anything that's not highlighted. So it's really handy. It will only mark the stuff that's highlighted. Well, because pandemic is all one symbol, it's charted as all one color. If you highlight those symbols, it's trying to highlight every symbol in the whole chart. And for at least on my tablet, on my Android tablet, Samsung, and this could depend on how much processing power your device has. It could depend on how much memory you have. I don't know. It struggles with that. It's trying to refresh. Every time I touch something, it's trying to refresh all that highlighting, and it takes several seconds for it to refresh before it will let me do anything. So I finally figured out, I didn't even realize this, that you don't have to highlight the symbols first to mark them as done. So on pandemic, if you're having that issue, don't highlight the symbol. Just skip the highlighting feature altogether. They're all the same symbol. Just don't worry about the highlighting. And then you just have to carefully mark the ones that you've done. You have to be a little more careful because everything you touch will highlight. But I haven't had a problem so far. I just highlight what I have. I changed to the marked done highlight feature, the third one clear to the right, and I mark the symbols that I've done, and then I click done and it marks them as done. So it's working fabulous for me. I love that I'm not restricted by the edge of the page, because when I'm working from the paper pattern, which I did when I was on vacation a couple weeks ago because I didn't take my tablet with me, it's a pain to move across the edge of a page. You kind of have to have both pages up there. You're trying to figure out how they line up. And I love in Pattern Keeper that you can see where the page break is, but it doesn't matter because you can see it's like having them all taped together. You can just keep going this way or that way to finish a motif. I really like that. And I love that it tells me how many stitches I've stitched in a day because I don't usually count my stitches. So that's been a lot of fun. Really, really enjoyed that. Hopefully, I remember to say everything I was supposed to say about pandemic. I think I told you last time, I keep one needle threaded in the Cactus color Sulky, and I keep one needle threaded in the Turquoise color Sulky, and then I keep, I remember, one more thing, and then I keep a needle threaded for each of the two one-stranded DMC. So I just have 4 needles threaded so that I can quickly pick up the one to do the back stitching, and I like to do the back stitching as I go, or I can quickly pick up the turquoise needle to do one of the little animals or something. That's been really handy. I believe I told you last time that I was using on 36 count, normally you would use a 28 size needle. Usually you use the size needle based on how big the holes in your fabric are, what size your fabric count is. And you usually use 28 for 36 or 40 count. but you're usually only using one strand when you're using 36 or 40 count, sometimes 2 strands on 36 count. But the Sulky thread, to get that threaded through the eye of a 28 needle would, oh, that would be terrible. I wouldn't recommend it at all. It would be very hard. So I was using a 28, no, sorry, forget that. I was using a 24 needle, which is what I usually use on 14 count fabric or 28 count if you're using linen over 2 threads, because it's got a bigger eye. It's a bigger needle. That fabric has bigger holes in it. And it threads really great. That Sulky thread goes right through the eye of that 24 needle. But the issue I was running into on my, this wouldn't happen on all threads, but if you're seeing this, on this 36 count linen, when I stuck my needle right here to park it for a minute, or I just stuck it in here for a second while I flipped the frame over or something, that big 24 needle was leaving a hole in my fabric that did not disappear when you pulled the needle out, which is no big deal. You're going to stitch over it. It doesn't matter. But those holes that I could see everywhere that I had poked the needle in were bothering me, which is one of the reasons why you don't use too large of a needle on too tight of a weave of fabric. The needle, as you pull it through, actually separates the threads apart and leaves a hole. And you can go back through and scratch it with your fingernail, or, I mean, if it doesn't bother you, it is not a big deal. But that's one of the reasons why when you're using a higher count fabric, you would use a smaller needle so that it doesn't disrupt those threads as you are stitching through, pulling the needle through. So I switched to a 26 needle. That's halfway between 24 and 28. And it's just a little bit harder to thread, but it's not leaving those holes in my linen every time I poke it through. So really, stitch what makes you happy. I'm just letting you know kind of the theory behind why there's different size needles and why you would use a different size needle. But if you're stitching on something and that the eye of that needle, for whatever thread you're using, and just getting it threaded through the eye of that needle is driving you insane because it's just so hard, then just switch to a bigger needle that has a bigger eye. There are also some brands of needles that have bigger eyes than others, but I don't know. I haven't paid attention, don't have enough experience with needles to tell you which one would have a bigger eye or which one doesn't. If someone out there knows, please comment and let us know. That would be fabulous information as well. Okay, hopefully that's the end of pandemic on this video, not the end of working on it. Okay, I did have one finish. My focus piece for July was Mini Hometown Gameboard, and I finished it. This was one of my Mania starts. A lot of my Mania starts are assigned to a certain month because I like to work on seasonal things during that month. And this one has the patriotic, it looks very patriotic to me because it has the flags and the stars. So I decided to work on it during July. And I was able to finish it. I am going to glue it to the top of a half size, the little bobbin box that's only, you know, like this big, like the half size bobbin box, not the full size bobbin box, but the smaller one. I pulled the bobbin box out before I started it, looked at the count of fabric, how big the pattern was going to be, and figured out exactly what size fabric I would need to do it on to make it fit the top of a bobbin box, which I saw at Keepsakes in Cincinnati when I was there for StitchCon. I saw that they had finished one that way, and I just thought it was so cute. This is a freebie pattern by Little House Needleworks. Originally, it was a freebie pattern that was distributed by Needleworks stores. When you got your order, they'd quite often give you a freebie pattern with it. I believe it is still a freebie pattern available at Needleworks stores, but I haven't been able to find it anywhere on the internet to download as a freebie pattern. It could be, I just couldn't find it. They also released it later in this chart called Something Old, Something New by Little House Needleworks, where they released a whole bunch of their previous freebies, plus a couple more that had never been released before. This is also out of print, but you can find it. There's some online stores who still carry it. You just have to look around for it, and it's probably out there on the secondhand market as well. Or maybe, I believe some needlework stores still have just the photocopy of, you know, it was just one single, like just this pattern. They may still have this at the counter if you ask for it. Or you know how you'll go into a store and they'll have little copies of freebies throughout the store. So you just have to check with your local store and see if they have a copy of it. That is on 30 count. I used Classic Colorworks floss, which is not what it's charted for. I believe it's charted for DMC, at least in this. Well, let's look. Maybe. It's charted for mostly DMC and a little bit of Classic Colorworks, it looks like. I used a conversion of Classic Colorworks that was put together by Jan at Tree of Life Samplings many years ago. I purchased a little conversion pack from her probably in 2006 or something like that. So that's what I used on mine. And then I also added these I added an extra tree out here on both sides, top and bottom. And I added this row of stars on either side because I was trying to make it fit the top of my floss box better. So it is a little different than charted. On 30 count weeks beige fabric. And hopefully I did it right and it actually fits on the top of the box. And hopefully next time I make a video, I will have done that and I'll show it to you. All right. WIPs. We already did pandemic. So let's move on to the rest of the WIPs. I am back to work full-time on location, my regular days at work on Monday, August 3rd. Today's Thursday, the July 29th, I think, maybe. It won't be a normal year at school, that's for sure, but I am back to work as normal on location, wearing a mask, starting Monday. So my summer break is over, so sad. This is Four Seasons, the mini version of Four Seasons from Heaven and Earth Design. This is a bigger picture of it. Oh, here we go. This is the cover page. The mini version of Four Seasons. The artwork is by Jacek Yurka. I am doing this in Pattern Keeper as well. And Heaven and Earth Designs was so nice. They worked so hard to correct that problem with the 08-09 color. And gosh, I think I'd only heard about the whole thing. And 2 days later, they had emailed me a new version of this pattern. And I haven't, there's just a little bit of places in the dark shadowing where that color was used so far. So not a big deal for me. I can switch over, no problem. And I am close to the gazebo finally on this side. This is the tub that's right next to the gazebo. So I think on this pass, I will actually see part of the gazebo. I'm so excited. This is summer, maybe. And this is, no, this is spring. I think this is spring and this is summer. But that's been fun to work on. I haven't worked on it very much. I've only done just a couple of squares. It kind of was on hiatus during July. That is on 25 count white even weave, and I'm using 1 strand of DMC over 1 fabric thread, so 1/1. Full cross. I always forget to say that. All of my Heaven and Earth Designs and full coverage pieces are full cross. That half tent stitch, a half of an X, called a tent stitch sometimes called petty point when it's really tiny, is not my favorite thing to do. It throws my brain off and I can't figure out where I am when I look at what I've stitched and what I haven't stitched. So I always prefer to do the full cross. This is a dimensions kit called Lost No More. And it also was kind of on hiatus during July. So there's not a huge amount done on it. It is in a bag that I bought at Shepherd's Bush several years ago. It was just one of the bags that they carried. It doesn't have a brand name on it, but I love it. And so I haven't worked on this very much either. I worked a little bit up here on the trees and maybe a little bit of this brown in his sleeve. Since last time you saw it, I can't remember. Still really enjoying this kit. I'm using the kit fabric that came with it. It's 18 count Aida, and using the kit floss. And it's most of it calls for 2 strands of floss over 1 square on the Aida. I always forget to show you the bags. 4 Seasons, my Heaven and Earth 4 Seasons is in my StitchCon bag. This was a fabulous bag for those of you who put all that together for StitchCon. Thank you. With the cute little charm on it that we made as a make and take on the last day. Even has the little stitchy bus on it. I decided to put it on my bag as a zipper pull. Pandemic was in a House of Stitch and Stash bag, Rika, one of the wonderful Rika bags. And she's in the midst of moving to Europe, so might be a while before I have another opportunity to buy a House of Stitch and Stash bag, but I sure love her bags. Next is Serenity Harbor by the Bay Needle Arts. Needle Art, singular. This is what it looks like. It was originally a 12-part year-long stitch-along, I believe in 2015. So when you buy the charts, it is 12 separate charts. It's sliced in slices like this in 12 parts, which is one of the reasons why it's so expensive, because if you added each one of those charts, you know how you do a Lizzie Kate, one of those really long Lizzie Kates, and it comes in a whole bunch of different charts. If you priced out each of these 12 as a separate chart, then that's why these really huge by the Bay Needle Arts are so expensive. But I am loving this piece. It is charted for DMC. I chose to make the water and these huge pieces of grass I wanted to make in a variegated color so that the grass would kind of variegate and so that the water would kind of variegate. That's always more fun. So I have converted some of the colors. This water I've converted to some dinky dyes. And these grasses I've just been trying to find. If I can find a Gloriana color that's close, I prefer that, because one big skein of those skeins of Gloriana have a lot of yards in them when you're only using 1 strand. So it's always nice to get, I like those because I can just buy one and know that I have enough for the whole pattern. So a lot of the greens I converted to are Gloriana. Like I said, these blues were dinky dyes that were recommended by Attic Needlework on their website for Serenity Harbor. And they don't give you their whole conversion. You can buy their whole conversion at the Attic for Serenity Harbor for just the same thing. They have some for the grass and some for the water for $10. And I didn't do that, but in their description on their website, they did just mention the colors that they had chosen for the water. So I got that. And the rest I'm choosing myself. Apparently I'm very chatty today, sorry. This is on 40 count Lakeside Vintage Lentil. And this is what I have so far. The sun and the clouds show up much better in person. But some of the clouds are in an ecru color, and I think I'm going to change them all to the white. These, because of the color fabric that I'm on, these sails were also charted to be that ecru color that these clouds are in, but I changed those to white and they show up much better. So I think I'm going to change a lot of these clouds back to white. I'll probably leave the bird ecru, and I'll leave there's a lighthouse here and just the beginning of a lighthouse here that are in the ecru. I think I'll leave them, but this is the overdye that I'm using on the water. Instead of going back and forth in stripes, I'm kind of trying to do just little puddles of color, just, you know, randomly do a couple of rows kind of going in a wave shape or something, and then I move around to somewhere else. Not being really fussy with it, I just wanted the variegation to look kind of more in sections like, instead of back and forth in big long rows. But I am really enjoying this piece. I pulled it out and realized that this stitching that I did right here, very last, is the wrong color. It doesn't match what's up here. So I need to pull just this out and redo that part. And I made a design change, otherwise known as a mistake, on this tree trunk. The top of it should have kind of moved over a little bit, and these won't meet but it's going to be fine, and the bottom is in the right place. So I'm just going to leave it. Thoroughly enjoying this piece. Love the pinks in those roses. That's exactly what was called for. Beautiful. And because it's such a long skinny piece, I did have this on scroll rods, and I was not enjoying it because scroll rods are a little bit bigger and bulkier. They're just not my favorite. I much prefer the Q-snaps. So I realized I wasn't pulling it out to work on it because I knew I was going to have to. I don't know what it is. It's just a mind thing. It's not that big a deal to pull out some scroll rods and stick them on they go on my lap frame just fine. It just makes it wider than this because the fabric has to go all the way out, and then the scroll rods have to go on the outside of that. Whereas on a Q-snap, you can fold the edges of the fabric underneath, so it's not quite as wide. I don't know what it is. It's just totally a mind thing in my head, but I decided I would enjoy it more on Q-snaps. So this long, really long piece at the bottom right now, I folded it up once and then folded it up again because that's about how many layers I can get under a Q-snap clip without breaking it. So it's still really long, and if I was trying to stitch right here, this fabric would get in my way. So I have then pulled all that extra up here and used one of these peels. They are a quilting tool. I think most quilting websites have them, as well as lots of other websites that sell handwork quilting stuff. And it holds that fabric up out of my way. You could also use a hair clip, you know, the claw, which you put your hair up in. Those work great to hold that up. So that's how I'm managing that. Because I am much more likely to work on it if it's on Q-snaps. I don't know why. Just what I'm used to. Oh, and that is also a Rika House of Stitch and Stash bag. Very cute bag. This is my Modern Folk Embroidery 2020 Stitch Along, which is also in a House of Stitch and Stash bag. I just love the colors on this one. I just yesterday finished the July section. This is Mrs. Seda Silk in Supernova color. I bought a whole hank. I'm not even going to use a fourth of it, I don't think, for this. So I'm going to have lots left over for another project. This was, the July section was this half of this tree and just this little bit over here. The green I am using in the middle is a Belle Soie Granny Smith green. And those are the only two colors I'm using. This is a 12-part stitch along, so we're a little over halfway. And his stitch alongs, Modern Folk Embroidery, he gives you what it's going to look like before you start. That's the finished piece. And it is on, oh, the Serenity Harbor was 40 count, I told you that, and I'm using one strand of floss over 2 fabric threads, so 1/2. This is 25 count even weave. Make sure I have it right side out. 25 count white even weave, and I'm just using 1 strand of silk over 1 fabric thread, so 1/1. And I love the way silk, the Mrs. Seda silk, almost all the silks I've used, Gloriana, Belle Soie, Avera Soie, they all cover really nicely one strand on over one thread on 25 count even weave. This is my, let me get it turned around. Okay. I took my hank of Mrs. Seda silk and I cut the loop. It comes in one big loop. So I cut the loop, so I had these really long strands, and I just took, 10 or 20 or 30 of them and rolled them around my finger and stuck them in a bag. And then did it again, put it in another bag, did it again until I had used all the threads. And it took 5. It took 5 bags for that hank. And I marked the one that I was currently using, just so I would keep using out of the same bag. And I can barely tell a difference between this bag and the other bags. So I've not used very much of this hank yet at all. And the Belle Soie, I was really worried that I was thinking, wow, it's getting kind of low in there, but then I realized I'm almost done with the green. I have plenty. So one skein of the Belle Soie was plenty. Okay. Did I tell you all the things on that? I think so. This is a So Much to Love bag that says focus on the good. I love this bag as well. All my favorite colors. There's her tag, So Much to Love. And this is Huckleberry Farm by the Blue Flower. I usually work on this on Sunday nights for just a little bit. And I am finally over to the house that's in the top middle. I'm so excited. This is Silk Weaver 40 count Elegance that I ran through the washing machine a couple of times trying to lighten it up a little bit. There's a lot of risk involved in that when you wash hand-dyed fabric, so I can't recommend that. I have no idea what will happen to you if you do that, but it worked well for me. For this chart, it's 40 count and I'm using 1 strand of floss over 2 fabric threads, and all of my floss is over-dyed cotton. And when I pulled the colors for this, I looked through the color chart and pulled what I had, because it calls for a little bit of DMC, like a third of it is DMC, I think, and the rest it calls for over-dyed weeks and gentle arts. So I pulled what I had, and I didn't have very many of them on hand. So then I pulled the DMC equivalent and went through all of my over-dyed colors and picked ones that I thought were close to the DMC equivalent. But then realized that there were some of them that didn't look anything like what it looked like in the picture, because that just happens. When they take the picture, it gets a different tone to it. You know how it is when you take pictures. Sometimes they're different. But I really like how this picture looks. So when the picture didn't match what I was seeing in my threads, then I went through my threads again and picked different ones that I thought matched better. And then for the Huckleberry colors, because I am using this really purple fabric, I wanted the Huckleberries to be nice purple colors that would stand out on this. So then one of them stayed the same. I think it's Rum Raisin. But the other two, I chose colors that I thought looked better on this purple. So I probably spent 2 hours choosing colors on this piece to make it look like the picture and to also adjust some colors for the fabric that I was using. But I was very happy with what I came up with. This medium, I'm not sure what the real name of it is, but it's I don't know, I'd have to look at their website, I'm sorry, but this size of the So Much to Love bag fits the 11 by 11 Q-snaps perfectly with the project on it and all the floss and everything. It has a kind of a poofed out bottom at the bottom. And it must be That 11 by 11 Q-snap is right here. So what's this? 11, 12, 13. It's got to be about 13-ish inches wide and about that tall. Kringles is a stitch along I'm doing. Huckleberry Farm is a stitch along I'm doing with my friend Lonnie. Kringles is a project I'm doing with my daughter, bossy daughter Marie, and my friend Kim. And it is also in a House of Stitch and Stash bag that has, kind of looks like cross stitch, but it's Christmassy. Or wintry, I guess you could say. We've decided to do, anyone who would like to join us, you are welcome to. We've decided to do one room a month. We're not going to have it done for this Christmas, but we're hoping to have it done for the Christmas after that. So we did this middle room for July. We're going to do this room for August. We also did all the brickwork around this room. We're going to do this in-between part as we do the room for August, and then we're going to try and get, oh, and I also figured if I do one letter a month of this sign, I can get that sign done. And then we're going to try and do part of the roof after we've done August so that we're up to where the roof, so we can find the roof. We're going to do a little bit of the roof every month as well, and also the brickwork around each room as we go. Because the brickwork and the roof and all of that is a lot of stitching. So that's our plan if you'd like to join us. And this is what I have so far. I am using 32 count Stormy Night Belfast linen that I got from 123 Stitch. I need to go back to their website and see what the maker of this fabric is. I'm not sure. The label didn't say. It does have an orange a thread in the selvage right there, so I know it says Weigart based fabric. That's all I know, and it's called Stormy Night. And I also know that it is printed because the back side is a solid gray and this side is a printed mottled gray, like it's been hand dyed, but it's not. It's been printed on it. But it is a gorgeous color. I thought it worked great for this. The called for fabric is 30 count Parisian gray, which is also gorgeous. That's what my daughter, Bossy Daughter, is doing it on, and Kim as well, my friend Kim. I prefer a 32 count fabric. I like the coverage of the floss better, 2 strands on 32 count. So I bought this one. And I'm using 2 strands of thread over 2 fabric threads. 2 strands of floss over 2 fabric threads, which is 2 over 2 on 32 count. With all of the called for threads except for weeping willow. I couldn't find any weeping willow, so I just chose one out of my stash that I liked, which is pine needles. I think it's Gentle Arts. I can't remember if it's Gentle Arts or Classic Colorworks. This is a 13 by 13 Alvin bag. Alvin is the maker. You can sometimes find them on Amazon. I found mine on cuttingmat.net, and there's either a dash or an underscore between cuttingmat.net, which is where I bought mine. I like them because they have this little zippered pocket on the front and they have handles, and the 13 by 13 size fits an 11 by 11 Q-snap perfectly. I love them. And my daughter Marie gave me several for Mother's Day and my birthday. This is the Positivity Rules Stitch Along by Caterpillar Cross Stitch. This is kind of a blurred out preview of what it will look like when it's finished. It is a 5-month stitch along. We are into we finished 2 months. August will be month 3. You can still purchase it, still join. The called for fabric was some kind of pink color. It's not telling me right there what color they recommended. But I just chose some that I could find at the time because, of course, I was starting it during the pandemic. This is blush, 40 count blush that I ordered from 123 Stitch, linen. And this is what I have so far. I finished the July section, and it comes out on the, it was in my email yesterday, I think it comes out on the 28th or 27th or something each month. So we already have August section, so I started on August section. Right here it says the word share, and then it has a big roof line and a chimney and a rainbow. I can't remember all what's up in the sky. But this is, well, you can't see it very well, but it is a really light pink color fabric. And that's what I have so far. I'm using the called for DMC, 1 strand over 2 fabric threads, 1 over 2. And this was a gift from my brother Walter and his wife, Juliana, for my birthday, for that. So that has been fun to work on. This is Sky Blue Street, and it is also in a 13 by 13 Alvin bag. Though on these 13 by 13, none of their other bags that I saw zip like this. There is one that zips on 2 sides, but this one actually zips down to here on both ends. So it kind of zips over and across and down on 3 sides, which I don't mind. But you do have to, just takes that extra split second to finish unzipping. This was when I took on my vacation. We were at Bear Lake last week with all of our kids and grandkids, and I took this one with me. I got quite a bit done on it. I'm very excited. It's looking so good. This is Sky Blue Street by Soda Stitch. It will look like this when it's finished. I bought mine off of Amazon a couple years or more ago, 2 years, I'm not sure. Soda Stitch is located in Korea. So I don't know. I've had some viewers comment and say it's hard to find. They're not being able to find it, but keep looking. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I don't know. And maybe Korea is just having a hard time shipping out right now. But it is a really cute. I'm thinking about finishing it like this example right here. They just have part of the scene on this box, but I'm going to do the whole thing, and I'm going to try and find a box or a basket or something where it could go all the way around and fit just perfect. So I'll have to measure it and then go to Hobby Lobby and be measuring everything to see if I can find something that's the right diameter. But I think it would be cute around the edge of some kind of a box or basket. I thought I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, but it rang anyway, and it was a spam call, and it stopped the recording. Sorry about that. So here is Sky Blue Street one more time. I worked on the cafe part right there. If you remember, Catherine did one. I could be repeating myself right here. I can't remember what I said right before the video ended, but Catherine had done, I had done 1 strand for all of this part so far and wasn't liking the coverage. It was just not making me happy. So Catherine took it home for my birthday, Mother's Day, and just stitched right over the top of what was already there and added 1 more strand. And now the coverage is so much better. And now I'm just stitching with 2 strands on this part. For the colors in this piece and the type of piece that it is, with so much white space that you don't stitch, I love the 2 strands and how rich and vibrant that color is with the 2 strands. Really enjoying this piece now. And it wasn't, I did have it on 8x8 key snaps because the fabric wasn't wide enough to fit on 11x11. But this design is just a little bit bigger than 8 inches or close to it. So I'd have to move the key snaps down to stitch this bottom part, and then I'd have to move them up to stitch this top part, and it was driving me nuts. So I finally just took out some scrap fabric and sewed it to the top and the bottom to make it a little bit bigger so that it would fit on my 11-inch key snaps. And now I don't have to move it up and down to stitch clear from the bottom to the top. Hopefully I didn't already just all say that before and repeated myself. 36 count white linen with the called for DMC, 2 strands of floss over 2 fabric threads. And then this was a Mania Start, also in an Alvin bag, 13 by 13. It's Silver Creek Samplers, and it's called Taking It EC. It reminds me of Bear Lake. This is assigned to work on in February, and I think I chose February because I thought I'd need something to cheer me up in February, to remember summer at the beach would cheer me up and to look forward to summer. But I realized while I was at that when I was packing to go to Bear Lake last week, that I should take it with me and at least put a little bit of stitches in on it while I was at the beach with my toes in the sand. So I did. I took it with me. I just got a little bit done. This heart and a little bit more of these waves and down the side. That was fun to work on. It is on 40 count something. The tags. Oh, yep, here we go. Oh, 32 count. Sorry, it's on 32 count Antique Ivory Belfast. And it's a very light peach color, in my opinion. And this was another one where I pulled the colors. It calls for all Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works overdyed cotton. And a few of them I pulled what I had, pulled the DMC colors out for all the conversion of all the other colors, just so I could see what color it was supposed to be. Some of those colors I didn't really like. They didn't really match what I was seeing on the cover photo, and it didn't go well with my fabric that I had chosen. So I just went through all of my overdyed floss and pulled out colors that I thought looked good, that were close to the DMC conversion, but also looked good on my fabric. This is a So Much to Love bag as well. I love it because it has glamping on it. Camping in style. So cute. That tent is my favorite. And this is the Linen and Threads Mystery Stitch Along. So this is also a 12-month stitch along. Free. You can get the patterns on the Linen and Threads website. You can still join, still stitch it. And they have several years worth of mystery stitch alongs on there, still for free. You can still get last year's and the year before and the year before. They have some gorgeous ones. I haven't stitched any of the other ones. But this is where we are so far. I did finish the July section. Where was the July? Oh, the July section was this part right here. And I was able to get that finished. I am really loving this one. I'm using 4 or 5 colors of blue silks, dark blue silks that I just had in my stash. And then this one silk that is grays and greens for an accent color. And this is 40 count alabaster linen. 1 strand of silk over 2 fabric threads. What's left? A stitcher's shelf. Got a little bit of work. July was a little crazy with vacations and everything, so I didn't get all the work it could have. But I got past the lady. I finally have a person in my stitching shelf, which I was so curious to see how much detail there would be. Could you even tell that it was a person? This is the a stitching shelf, the regular version. It's not a mini, it's not a quick stitch, it's the regular version, but it is not the max color version. My friend Lilia is doing the max color version, and it looks amazing. This has 80-ish colors. It's the 80-ish, 90 colors version. And it is quite large. It's the regular version. And you can't, if you get really close, her face is just blobby mess. But I already knew from my daughter, boss daughter, Catherine's finish of James Christensen's Fairy Tales. We showed that in over a year ago on this video. You can see that. It's labeled HAAD finish in the title. I already knew from her finish that that would happen, that you can't look really close at the people and see any kind of detail, that you kind of have to back up a little bit. But I am very happy with how she looks at arm's length, which is where you would normally be viewing her on the wall. I can tell that that is a lady sitting there looking down at her stitching. I am very happy. I think it is looking fabulous, and I'm so excited to finally have gotten to a person. Now that I'm using Pattern Keeper, I am not limited to pages at all. So I think I just crossed a page right here, if I remember correctly. I'm using the large format of my printed version. But in Pattern Keeper, it doesn't really matter where the edge of the page is. So I went over just a little bit further. I'll probably finish this column because I think that will finish her dress and what she's sitting on. And then instead of continuing to move this way, I'm going to move down so that I can get it'll go in a little bit into the next season. The summer shelf down here that's all in greens. That will be fun. But really enjoying that. I finished her down there and then did a little bit of this next row. Loving that piece. Oh, and it is just, I can't tell you, 100 times easier to stitch in Pattern Keeper. Just makes your brain just so happy. It's so much easier on your brain. Oh, I didn't look up. A viewer. Okay, this is the Disneyland full coverage piece. I didn't write it on here, did I? It will look like this when it's finished. I bought it on Etsy. The pattern says Nenny by Nenny Design, N-E-N-I Design. But her Etsy store is not named that. But if you look up, if you do a search for Disneyland on Etsy, and I think if you put Nenny, N-E-N-I, in the search, it'll come up with the store that has this. She has lots of Disneyland pieces. And a viewer, and I didn't look it up to see your name. I'm so sorry. She said that, because the version I have that I bought several years ago is not compatible with Pattern Keeper. But she commented and said there's a version of this on Etsy that's compatible with Pattern Keeper. And it says that right in the title. I found it, of this exact same picture. And it says PK, compatible or something, in the title of it. So I looked at it and I purchased it. It was less than $5, I think. It wasn't very much. But it is a different version. Mine only has 50 colors, and that one has, I think it was just slightly over 100 colors in it. It would be a gorgeous piece, and it's Pattern Keeper compatible. I think I did put it on my tablet, and it worked just great. But I can't start using it because it's a completely different color palette than what I'm using with just the 50 colors on mine. So for now, I'm stuck doing this version without Pattern Keeper. But what I was going to say was I usually do this and stitching shelf on Saturdays, because when I'm working, that's when I have more brain power. It's on Saturdays. And last Saturday I did a stitcher shelf first, and then I did this one, and that was a bad choice because after using Pattern Keeper and then going back to paper, also this one is on 40 count linen. It's not on the 25 count even weave that I'm doing a stitching shelf 1/1 on. So when you're doing 1/1, you're just counting intersections. You're just counting squares. It's really easy to count. When you're on 40 count linen, and mine's on a dark blue, then you have to remember to count 2 threads for every square. It's not as easy to count as on Ada or doing 1/1 on 25 count. So it's just making my brain work all kinds of harder because I couldn't use Pattern Keeper to highlight the symbols for me, and I had to sit there and count on the linen. So next Saturday I need to do this one first and then switch to Pattern Keeper so I don't realize how much I'm missing the Pattern Keeper when I work on it. I have to get my patterns unstuck from it. This is what I have done so far. I worked right here and finished this stripe coming down. So fun to work on. Because it only has 50 colors, it's not nearly as confetti heavy as Four Seasons or a stitching shelf. Lots of blocks of one color, so it's nice. And I started it, when I very first started stitching it, I tried just regular cross country because I thought it was only 50 colors. It'll be fine. There's lots of blocks of big color. It'll be fine. But it's got just enough confetti in it with the 50 colors that it wasn't making me happy to do cross country. I'm sure there were lots of you out there that could do it cross country and be fine. But it was just making my brain work too hard for me. So Catherine, that was another one that Catherine took home one year over Mother's Day and my birthday. And the little bit that I had done so far right here, she finished that page for me so that it made it all solid so that I could continue from there doing the way I usually do it, one square at a time on full coverage. That's not how I stitch on any other things, just these big full coverage with lots of confetti in them pieces. I just do one 10 by 10 square at a time. And that is the called for DMC using one strand full cross on 40 count dwarf linen, which I think is picture this pus, I believe, linen. And I wanted that dark blue linen because the pattern is actually charted to stitch all of that sky. And I didn't want to stitch all of that sky. So I put it on dark blue linen so I wouldn't have to stitch the sky. And I think that's all of the WIPs. Oh, plans. Oh, rats. Let me pull that out. Oh, this basket is the WIPs that are not in the current rotation. Most of them are mania starts that are assigned to a different month. And I need, not that one, not that one. Maybe it's in this one. No, it's not in that one, rats. Maybe it's in this one. Aha! This is another So Much to Love bag. Beautiful birds in the trees. And this is May I by All Through the Night. And it says, may I a small house and a large garden have. I saw the finished model for this at Keepsakes. I also saw Taking It Easy as a finished model at Keepsakes in Cincinnati. They were just gorgeous. This was a mania start. And this is how much I have so far. I've noticed on black Aida that white Q-snaps will leave a white mark on them. So I've started using, I have some dark gray felt that I put under the clips when I use Q-snaps on black Aida. It must be the sizing in the Aida. It would probably wash out. And it's usually around the edge. It hasn't caused a problem for me yet. But I've started using a piece of felt between the clip and the black Aida so it will stop leaving that white mark. But that's what I have so far. This was another one that this is what I got done during Mania. And this is another one where I pulled the calls for a lot of overdyed cotton. I pulled what I had, the few colors that I had, pulled the DMC equivalent, chose overdyed cottons out of my stash that matched the DMC equivalent, although sometimes I didn't like that color, so I changed to a different color that looked more like the model photo and would show up well on the black. The reason I pulled it out is this is my assigned piece for August. So for plans, this will be my focus piece, Monday, Wednesday, Friday focus piece in August until it's finished. It should be finished long before the end of August, unless work is just insane. I hope it's not. Work is definitely going to be different this year, different than it has ever been. So that's the Monday, Wednesday, Friday focus piece. And then when that's finished, that's when I usually, for the rest of the month on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I work on getting the linen and threads stitch along caught up and the modern folk embroidery stitch along caught up. The Tuesday piece is American Sampler, which I didn't work on since the last time I showed it to you, so I didn't show you that one this time. And the phone shut off again. Oh my word. The Thursday piece is Serenity Harbor. I think that was where I ended. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I work on the Tuesday and the Thursday piece for a little while, but then I usually also work on, I'll work on the Positivity Stitch Along, Positivity Rules Stitch Along a little bit, also on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the Kringles Stitch Along on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I still have a daily 30 to 40 minutes. Every time I sit down to stitch the first 30, 40 minutes, I usually work on Lost No More. And then I also try and get a square in on Four Seasons every day. Those are daily pieces. And then Saturdays is Peaceable Kingdom, which I haven't worked on since the last time I showed it to you. A Stitcher's Shelf and Disneyland. And then on Sunday evenings, I usually get in a little bit, a couple hours maybe on Huckleberry Farm. So those are my plans for August. And I hope you all have a fabulous summer, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.